There's a line midway through Ready Player One that really captures its attitude towards nostalgia. It's a quote from the Superman movie where Lex Luthor says, "Some people can read War and Peace and come away thinking it's a simple adventure story. Others can read the ingredients on the back of a bubblegum wrapper and unlock the secrets of the universe." That quote really sums up Ready Player One's attitude towards nostalgia. The film is a shrine to all the pop culture minutiae and things that many of us have loved for years, all mashed together in a great pastiche of our memories, our games, and sort of the collective unconscious that's built around nerd culture. It's as though it's saying, look at all of the vast knowledge that's in the bubblegum wrapper that is our nostalgic fantasies from the past. And while the film overall is critical of reality being pushed aside for the sake of a virtual world, it makes a greater case for that virtual world and celebrates it in more detail than any film before it. Ready Player One takes place in the near future in Ohio, where a young man named Wade travels the virtual world in hopes of obtaining the ultimate Easter egg, an Easter egg put inside the Oasis by its creator, and whoever discovers it inherits a lot of money and ownership of the Oasis, which is the largest economic entity in the world at the time. Wearing virtual reality gear and bodysuits, people plug into this space and become anything that they want to be. But apparently this has had unintended effects on the real world. It appears as though there was some kind of massive war or apocalypse, but you realize early on that this is just from the neglect of the real world that people have had through their love and immersion of the virtual world. Junked cars are everywhere, there's garbage, it feels like an uninviting place, and this is all because it has been abandoned for a much more exciting place for people. Their lives are dreary, but it's sort of like this vicious cycle because their real world space is made dreary because of their neglect of it. Ready Player One is an imaginative, well-crafted world that really, really rewards fans of nerd culture. I can't think of a film out there that rewards fans of it more. It's not a perfect film, but I found myself all too willing to forgive its awkward voiceover narration and sometimes bizarre avatars, and moments in the film where the plot was driven along by something that made zero sense to me. And the transitions between narrative lines in the film sometimes were so clunky that it left me wondering how we just got to the place we were in. Ty Sheridan and Olivia Cook are the two main protagonists in the film, but they're accompanied by a wonderful cast of characters. Lena Waithe, Simon Pegg makes an appearance every now and again. And I felt like even if the acting in the real world segments of the film was kind of wooden, I felt like that was something that was intentional to portray even more of a sense of deadness in reality. Even if Ty's character wasn't emoting a lot, I didn't expect his character to emote a lot. He was a person that grew up in a virtual world where his real world persona had not been developed and seemed stilted, and that didn't bother me at all. I felt like it was balanced out a lot by the other characters, and I thought he did a really good job. The film was directed by Steven Spielberg, and while he has absolutely nothing to prove as a film director, it was really nice to see him sort of returning to form. So many of the films that he's worked on recently have been, serious real-world films with no sci-fi or fantasy elements to them. And that's really what his bread and butter was, and creating the sci-fi fantasy blockbuster is what I regard as his, highest accomplishments. And this definitely felt like old school Spielberg to me. There was a smooth sense of action in the film that I totally felt caught up in. One thing that I regard Steven Spielberg as quite amazing at as compared to other directors is his ability to completely immerse me in his films. There were so many moments in the movie where I really forgot I was watching a movie, and I feel like that's so rare for me these days. I'm so critical and so on top of whatever I'm watching, that for me to have moments of totally forgetting where I am and just loving what I'm seeing is valuable to me, and I'll always appreciate his movies for that. About midway through the film, the characters are inserted into a classic horror film, one of my favorite horror films. I won't spoil which one it is because it caught me so off guard that I wouldn't want to ruin that surprise for people. But once that happened, I realized that the irreverent sort of liberation of all these different IPs into this film created a space where anything could happen, and I was ready for anything to happen. And so often it did. Things came out and surprised me. Characters that I would not have expected to see appeared, and it was just a delight every time something like that happened. Even if, in a way, I feel like it's sort of a cheap thrill to just recognize a character that you love in a film, it was so unique of an experience to see all of these things mashed up together that I left feeling like I had seen something new and something that was going to have an impact on future films. So I'm going to give this film an 87. It's sort of difficult for me to gauge what people will think of this movie if they're not fans of nerd culture. But I felt like there was enough stuff in the film that transcended nerd culture to where, even though it felt like it was resting on the Easter eggs and the references, it was still an exciting, imaginative film that I would say anyone could really enjoy who didn't have a particular aversion to that kind of thing. If you're someone who rolls your eyes at nerdy things and then don't even come close to this film, all it is just a huge fanboy just rolling around in the mud kind of movie, and you're not gonna like it. But if that even appeals to you at all, you're gonna feel like this is a unique experience that was crafted for you, that you're excited exists. And I don't know, I was impressed by the film. I went into it a little apprehensive because I didn't know what to think. I didn't love all of the trailer material, I thought, when I had seen them, so I was a little apprehensive. But man, I'm still smiling about it today. It was a really, really fun movie that was just loaded with ideas. It felt like how George Lucas took all of his film loves and adventure stories and samurai things and dogfights and everything and put it into Star Wars. Ernie Klein and Steven Spielberg with this project put all of their experiences through this funnel, and it came out, and this is what we have.